lock onto him, R2.
Set his foils in attack position.
They're coming around.
Oh, this is going to be easy.
This is where the fun begins.
All right, R4. No. No, nothing too fancy.
Surge all power units, R2. Stand by, reverse thrusters.
They overshot us.
Move to the right so I can get a clear shot at them.
My cockpit's bugging.
Yeah!
They're all over me.
Missile. We got him, R2.
Flying is for droids.
I will be completely honest with all of you right off the bat. There is very few movies, TV shows that I was genuinely excited for or excited to see. But the Book of Boba Fett was one of those things that I was genuinely interested and excited to see. It had so much potential, so many possibilities, so much mystery behind it. And by the end of the show, I felt oddly empty. I wanted to just kind of talk about it a little bit and give kind of my perspective on the whole thing. So the basic plot of the story is that it takes place shortly after Return of the Jedi. Boba Fett has survived the Sarlacc pit. Boba Fett comes back to Jabba's palace, basically takes over Jabba's business, becomes kind of the head of Jabba's old mob or gang or whatever you want to call it. And then a rival gang shows up on Tatooine, causes some issues. Boba Fett has to put together a little ragtag band of pretty much random people, aside from like the Mandalorian who showed up as well. And then they have some fights. The Book of Boba Fett has some very strong filler episodes, and not like in a good way. To me, filler episodes need to be something good. Like, I understand that TV shows are going to have filler episodes, I understand that, but they need to be good ones that expand on a character or add some more backstory or add some more layers, like the Tales of Ba Sing Se from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's a perfect example of how to do a filler episode on a TV show properly. And the Book of Boba Fett just completely failed in that regard. And to me, it just felt very much like it was dragging. And to me, it was very boring once it reached those points where there wasn't any character development. There wasn't anything making me continue my interest in certain characters or even the storyline in itself. And the flashback scenes of after he escaped from the pit and all of that was actually very interesting. To me, it reminded me a lot of kind of the old Western movies. The scenes with Boba Fett and the Tusken Raiders actually reminded me a lot of those old Westerns, those interactions, and it added a whole new kind of depth to the Tusken Raider characters and a whole different kind of depth to just Tatooine as a whole. So to start out the show, I was interested and I was curious to kind of see where they would go from there. There was also some cameos, but like they have Luke Skywalker come back, which I think is cool. Starting out the new Jedi Order and everything with the Grogu, the Baby Yoda character. And that was interesting. And they even have Ahsoka come back. And there's some okay scenes between Ahsoka and like the Mandalorian and kind of mentioning like Anakin and stuff like that. And to me, those scenes were okay. But bringing Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka into the show, to me, was very pointless. Didn't add anything to the actual story. And I felt like their characters were wasted to a great extent. And so that was disappointing. This show was a missed opportunity to use a character that really hadn't been expanded upon much at all in the Star Wars universe. And I do not feel as if they did a good job continuing his story. Like, I would have enjoyed a show where Boba Fett just went around and was, collecting bounties on people. Characters like maybe we've seen before, like cleaning up after the Empire has fallen, after Return of the Jedi, kind of seeing what happens from there. Like, that would have been interesting to me. But the show in itself and the setting and just the characters, it all felt very small scale. And to me, by the end of it, it's like, why do I care? They haven't really done much of anything to expand on this character. And overall, the show just felt very disappointing. I had kind of the same sort of feeling that I had after watching The Rise of Skywalker, where there was all this mystery and this kind of interest, where it's like, these are characters, some of the characters that I actually enjoy. And I'm curious what they're going to do with the characters. And then by the end of the show, it felt like they really didn't do much of anything. The whole show just felt like padding. It was disappointing. It was sad. The final episode, to me, was just a complete mess. I felt very disappointed by the end of the series, and I felt like there was a lot of time wasted overall. Like, I like the character of Boba Fett. I've pretty much always liked him. Empire is probably my favorite Star Wars movie, and a large part is due to kind of the mystery around this bounty hunter, Boba Fett. So, by the end of this, it brings me to the new Obi-Wan KENOBI show that Boba Fett makes me very nervous because I have even higher expectations for the Obi-Wan show. I'm hoping that with The Mandalorian and with the Book of Boba Fett that Disney's been kind of holding off on the best stuff for the Obi-Wan show, because I really hope that they understand how many people are excited for the show and how many people love the character of Obi-Wan and everything, and that I'm hoping they respect the character to actually continue the story of him between A New Hope and Revenge of the Sith. I hope that they don't screw it up. I hope that there isn't a bunch of cameos and unnecessary story stuff that doesn't actually add anything.
The General's command ship is dead ahead.
Well, boys, I did it. I finally did it. I watched the entirety of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and I gotta say, it was certainly something. Some people say that, this show didn't really need to happen. I mean, they already had, like, Rogue One, they already had, Revenge of the Sith, and then it carries over into, A New Hope and all that. Like, we didn't really need the show, and I'm just gonna say, those people are wrong. 100% wrong. This show was not a money grab. It was not nostalgia bait. This show was 100% deserved because there was so many gaps, so many in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope that we needed to fill in. I mean, we had Rogue One. That was a movie, and that was needed. That was a story plot that we really... And also that Andor show. Full disclosure, Star Wars is going the way of Marvel at this point. It's reaching a point where they're just peddling out content, whether or not it makes any sense, whether or not it's necessary, all of it for money. And that's what it is. And it's creating something I don't really like. It's creating a point where Star Wars doesn't feel special anymore. They're trying to make it more accessible. They're trying to make it more in tune with the modern concept of storytelling, which is just by far the best thing ever. And I don't really like that. We had 6 movies, and I think that was perfect. We had some spin-off TV shows, which were actually really good, and they did fill in some gaps, but without it feeling like money grabs. And now it's reaching a point that I'm just kind of done. I am not interested in really anything past this point. My interest ended with this show, basically. And the show itself, I will say, was better than I was expecting, but also left me wanting more. And I'm not backpedaling and saying I wanted more like Star Wars content, more shows, this and that. Specifically, I wanted more Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. This show, if anything, is wasted potential. They got these two classic characters played by the two classic actors from the prequels, and it felt like Disney was finally going to do something great and actually make something that was worthwhile, something that actually felt like Star Wars. Because to me, the three sequel movies, whatever you want to call them, I don't even acknowledge those anymore. I just don't care about those. Those did not feel like Star Wars. And that's my opinion. You can disagree. I don't care. They killed off basically all of my favorite characters. The only character I actually somewhat enjoyed from those was Kylo Ren, and they even killed him off too. And I have a whole opinion on how the Rise of Skywalker should have ended. And trust me, it's a lot better than what they ended up coming up with, let me assure you now. But it just felt like such wasted potential. They brought back Ewan McGregor, they brought back Hayden Christensen, they brought back the guy who plays Bail Organa. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but I recognize him every time I see him. They brought back all these memorable characters from the actual prequel movies, and I'm like, damn, they're actually going to make this feel like something like Star Wars. And then they wasted it. There was not enough Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. He's using a blaster throughout like half of the show. That's anti-Obi-Wan. What are you people doing? They make him act like a pussy-ass bitch for like half of the show as well. They don't have enough Hayden Christensen. They have like one or two flashbacks with him in it without him wearing like the Darth Vader suit and everything, and that's it. They could have done so much more with this. Granted, there were some cool things, but even with that, it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough in this show for me to say, I really hope that they do another season of this. I'm really invested at this point, because the starting point of this series was just not enough. And at this point, that's what Disney has been doing with Star Wars. Nostalgia bait and cash grabs is what Disney has been doing with Star Wars, and it seems like it's what it's going to continue to do with Star Wars, and that bothers me, because yet again, it makes Star Wars not special. And so all of these like newer Star Wars fans and all these people who are just starting to get out and like watch Star Wars for the first time in their lives and actually kind of like enjoy it and get into it and get invested, they're going to be watching things like the Book of Boba Fett and this Obi-Wan Kenobi show. It's not what Star Wars should be. Those 6 movies, including the prequels, which I do enjoy, mostly for their memitude and just their quotability, but the 6 movies are no longer special because that's not it anymore. They're trying to make this giant universe out of something that I think should have remained smaller. And at this point, I'm done. I'm not invested. I don't care anymore. Anything else pretty much on the list, even like Mandalorian Season 3, I'm really not that interested in seeing. They butchered the Book of Boba Fett. I was quite interested in that, and that was just a letdown. And at this point, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was a letdown as well. It just wasn't enough. It just felt like a money grab. And by the end of watching the show, honestly, I felt kind of salty.
Salt.
I watched it and I was invested. I'm like, what are they going to do with this to actually set it apart from everything else? And they just didn't. And they wasted potential. And that's what it was. So, in my opinion, watch the original 6 movies and basically everything George Lucas had involvement in before Disney took over. Because after that, it basically went downhill from there. Alright, that's pretty much it.
You have hate. You have anger.
Good, Anakin, good. Kill him. Kill him now.
I should.